In the previous episode, Elena, overwhelmed by pain, used Alaric's compulsion to erase her love for Damon. Caroline and Enzo found Stefan and asked him to help search for Damon, but Stefan had already given up and started a new life. Enzo, enraged, killed Stefan's girlfriend, Ivy. Stefan decided to take revenge on Enzo, making his appearance at Whitmore College. At a small diner, Enzo was ambushed by Tripp, who injected him with a syringe filled with vervain. Just as Enzo was about to fight back, Stefan stabbed him with a wooden stake and handed him over to Tripp. Meanwhile, Bonnie and Damon were trapped in the prison world, reliving the same day over and over. Until one day, they discovered a third person, Kai. Picking up from the last episode, this handsome, charming young man turned out to be a remorseless serial killer, showing no signs of regret. Bonnie refused to help him escape the prison world, but Damon didn't care about Kai's nature. Bonnie, furious, confronted Damon, saying, "How could you not care? Are you like him?" Damon revealed his dark past. When the eclipse occurred, he managed to cross the yard and return to the party. By the time Stefan realized what was happening, it was too late. The party guests had been slaughtered by Damon, leaving only Zach's wife. Zach begged Damon not to harm his wife and unborn child, reminding him that the baby was also Damon's blood relative. After Stefan handed over his daylight ring, Damon still ruthlessly killed Zach's wife. No wonder Damon always believed that the day of the eclipse was his personal hell. It turned out his crimes were even worse than Kai's. Later, Stefan erased Zach's memories, making him forget about his wife and child. However, the massacre Damon caused alerted the town council, forcing the brothers to leave. It wasn't until years later that they both returned to the town, where they eventually met Elena, thus beginning the story of the first season of the Vampire Diaries. When Damon saw Zach again, he killed him without hesitation, as Zach's mere existence was a constant reminder of the destruction Damon had caused. After confessing his sins, Damon seemed relieved, but Bonnie no longer wanted to help him leave. Seeing this, Kai tried to use force against Bonnie, but Damon stopped him. Meanwhile, the missing girl, Sarah, had been hiding in Damon's mansion all along. As the saying goes, the most dangerous place is the safest place. It was previously mentioned that Sarah came to town in search of her family, and she turned out to be Zach's daughter. Back then, Stefan had taken the pregnant woman's body to the hospital, where doctors performed an emergency C-section and saved the baby. But since Zach's memories had been erased, no one came to claim her. Now, Sarah had finally uncovered the clues about her parentage.
Your dad is Zach Salvatore.
Sarah was a descendant of the Salvatore vampire brothers. Returning to the prison world, Damon secretly approached Bonnie, suggesting they steal Kai's ascendant. After all, Kai was a witch, without magic. But then Kai suddenly appeared, warning Damon not to try it. Kai explained that although he was born without magic, he possessed a power that terrified everyone. The Gemini Coven didn't banish him simply because he murdered his siblings. Their real fear lay in something far more dangerous. Kai could absorb the magic of others and make it his own. He was a witch's worst nightmare. Kai gave Bonnie and Damon two choices. Either he drains all of Bonnie's magic and they all go down together, or they cooperate and go home together.
What's it gonna be?
After completing his revenge, Stefan was preparing to leave again, only to be stopped by Elena. She believed that Stefan was just running away, insisting that self-deception wouldn't heal his pain. But Stefan confidently replied that he had his own way of coping. Elena challenged Stefan to prove it to her. To demonstrate how he would start a new life, Stefan spontaneously staged a mock proposal. Not only did Elena play along with his act, but she even added some drama of her own.
Will you...
Wait! You're not just proposing to me because I'm pregnant, are you?
No.
Their performance won over everyone in the bar, who all clapped and cheered, except for one burly man who remained unmoved. Through this act, Stefan showed his desire for a fresh start, and Elena felt reassured. They chatted about everyday life. Elena, curious, asked why Stefan chose to work in an auto repair shop, slaving away for just $200 a week. Stefan said it didn't matter, and proposed a toast to change. After they parted ways, Stefan unexpectedly went to stir up trouble with the burly man.
Noticed you weren't celebrating my engagement. How come?
It turned out this guy had some bad blood with Stefan. As if he'd switched off his humanity, Stefan continued to provoke the man, resulting in yet another brutal beating. Why another, you ask? Because Stefan frequently caused trouble at this bar. He seemed to be the type who couldn't feel right without getting into a fight. Luckily, Elena hadn't gone far. She compelled the man and made him leave. Elena suddenly realized that this was Stefan's so-called method of healing. All of Stefan's efforts to hide his pain were in vain. Abandoning Damon filled him with guilt and self-blame, so he often sought out fights as a way to punish himself. Meanwhile, Alaric, in his pursuit of Dr. Joe, took a hungover Jeremy to the hospital for a checkup. Only Matt was doing anything productive. He was trying to figure out how to get close to Sheriff Tripp when, to his surprise, Tripp extended an olive branch of his own. He wanted to train Matt to become a vampire hunter. Back at the bar, Elena scolded Stefan for his weakness, but Stefan turned the tables on her, accusing her of being the weakest one. "At least I didn't forget him," he said.
No one's forgetting him.
You are. You erased him.
What are you talking about?
At this point, Stefan had no choice but to reveal the truth. Elena not only erased her memories of falling in love with Damon, but in her memories, Damon was still a demon. Elena seemed to hear the biggest joke. Stefan shattered Elena's self-deception, planting a seed of doubt in her mind. That evening, Tripp brought Matt to a farmhouse outside of town, saying that what was inside would open Matt's eyes. He clearly already considered Matt one of his own. Inside the farmhouse, Enzo was being held captive. Although Matt and Enzo were old acquaintances, they had to pretend not to know each other to avoid raising suspicion. Tripp had kept Enzo alive to extract more information about other vampires. Elena sought out Alaric to confirm the truth and discovered that Stefan wasn't lying. Everything about Damon had been preserved by Alaric. Before erasing her memories, Elena had even written herself a letter, foreseeing that someone might one day tear down her facade. Elena had been ruthless.
Alaric can restore your lost memories. All you have to do is ask. But I hope that you don't.
Her past self warned her present self not to regain her love for Damon. Back then, Elena questioned why Stefan worked at the auto repair shop, and it wasn't until Damon's newly restored car made an appearance that the answer became clear. Stefan had been fixing his brother's car, the one that had been wrecked during one of Damon's suicidal missions. After reading the diary, Elena decided to follow her past self's advice.
Ivy.
Stefan.
Ivy hadn't died after all. Enzo had turned her into a vampire, leaving Stefan filled with a flood of mixed emotions. Ivy was unable to adapt to her new identity, and her emotions were extremely intense, leaving Stefan completely at a loss. But Stefan couldn't abandon Ivy, so he brought her to Caroline, hoping she would teach Ivy how to control her bloodlust.
If anybody can teach her, it's you.
No, but you don't have to flatter me because I already know that.
The favored are always fearless. Caroline agreed to Stefan's request.
When do we eat?
On the other side, Alaric was lecturing about a historical story of two brothers who turned against each other over a woman. It was obvious he was throwing shade at Damon, while also subtly hinting at Elena. After class, Alaric once again urged Elena to restore her memories of Damon, but she, as usual, refused. She had let go of the past and was ready to accept Liam's advances. They agreed to attend the corn maze party together that night. Under Caroline's guidance, Ivy had learned the basic skills of a vampire. She wanted to attend the party tonight to practice her compulsion and enjoy some fresh, warm blood. However, Caroline wouldn't allow it. In response, Ivy snapped Caroline's neck. As the sun set, a young girl ran frantically through the cornfield, trying to escape. It turned out that a group of people was hosting a party in the cornfield. Meanwhile, Stefan first got a daylight ring from Luke, then went to Alaric, asking him to compel Ivy to forget about him. Alaric was speechless. So now he was the breakup master? He refused Stefan's request. Like a wild animal, Ivy attacked a passerby, though her conscience kicked in at the last moment, and she let the man go. Stefan was ready to leave quietly, but after hearing about Ivy's escape, he returned. Caroline was deeply disappointed in Stefan. Even if he didn't care about Ivy, he shouldn't just abandon her. But Stefan believed he owed Ivy nothing. He left the daylight ring at Caroline's dorm. Stefan had changed. Caroline admitted she had once truly hoped Damon would come back because if he did, Stefan might return to his old self too.
But right now, all I want is for you to just get back in your car and go.
In the prison world, before the solar eclipse, Damon and the others discovered a power nexus. At Kai's request, Damon dug a tunnel at the spot. When the light from the solar eclipse passed through the tunnel and onto the Ascendant, combined with Bonnie's spell, it would open a portal to the real world. Bonnie asked Kai about the exact spell, but he kept stalling, saying it wasn't the right time yet. Bonnie realized something was off. If Kai knew the spell, he would have drained her magic already and escaped on his own. Bonnie then threatened Kai. Either he tells her the spell right now, or he would strip her of her magic.
He won't kill me.
Doesn't look like that from here.
Ow!
Stop!
Kai eventually backed down, confirming Bonnie's suspicion that he didn't know the spell at all.
Modus.
Damon was a bit annoyed at Bonnie for acting impulsively. Bonnie explained what prison would give the prisoner the key, based on how her grandmother sent her there. Bonnie was certain that the prison world was created by the Bennett witches at the request of the Gemini Coven. Only a spell from Bonnie's bloodline could operate the Ascendant. Sure enough, Bonnie's spell activated the Ascendant. No wonder Kai had said that Bonnie was his only hope of getting out.
Whoa, where are you going?
Home. Coming?
Meanwhile, in the real world, Tyler swerved to avoid a bloodied man who suddenly appeared in the road and crashed into the cornfield. At the time, the corn maze party was in full swing, and Tyler's crash injured several people. If any of them died, it would trigger Tyler's werewolf curse. Tyler hurriedly called Elena for help, but Elena was busy because there were injured people everywhere. Tyler then called the witch Liv. Elena secretly used her vampire blood to heal the critically injured. A girl who had been on the brink of death moments before suddenly sprang back to life, raising suspicion in Liam, who was witnessing this medical miracle. The bloodied person who appeared in the road was the survivor of Ivy's attack. Watching the man's vitality fade away little by little, Tyler felt very helpless. He was about to turn into a werewolf again. Seeing Tyler in such despair, Liv suddenly suffocated the man to death, shocking Tyler. Stefan abandoned Ivy, but the kind-hearted Caroline was ready to take over the trouble. Caroline suddenly received a call from Ivy, who was terrified. She confessed she had lost control and caused a major accident. Caroline was exasperated but immediately set out to help Ivy. However, just after hanging up, Ivy flagged down another car, her bloodlust flaring up again. But this time she picked the wrong target. The driver was vampire hunter Tripp. Tripp easily subdued Ivy, and Caroline witnessed the whole thing as she arrived on the scene. Prison world, Damon and Bonnie entered the tunnel. As the eclipse occurred, they lifted the Ascendant together, preparing to go home. Suddenly, Bonnie was struck by an arrow. Kai had revived. This prison was a personal hell designed just for Kai. He was immortal here, as solitude was a punishment far worse than death. As Kai and Damon fought, Bonnie once again activated the Ascendant. She used a spell to fling Kai away, and then tossed the Ascendant to Damon. The next moment, Damon was engulfed in light and ascended, while the Ascendant shattered into pieces. Kai let out a soul-piercing scream. All the injured from the party were taken to the hospital. Alaric was caught off guard by Joe's confession of feelings for him. He felt the same for her, but, because of his vampire nature, decided to put their romance on hold. Alaric attempted to compel Joe to forget about her feelings for him, telling her that he was boring and just a drunk.
And you absolutely want me to run for the hills.
You're right. Tonight was a literal disaster. And you're definitely an alcoholic.
To his shock, the compulsion didn't work. Something that shouldn't be possible, especially since he's an original, and even vampires can't resist his compulsion. Liam kept pressing Elena about her miraculous healing abilities, and Elena had no choice but to silence him with a kiss. Liv cried alone for a long time after killing someone, and Tyler came to comfort her. Tyler was moved by Liv's actions. Stefan, reeking of alcohol, visited the crypt, talking to his dead brother Damon. He lamented that, in the end, he had become someone hated by everyone.
Because I'm lost, brother. I'm lost.
So what? Gone a couple months, you think it's okay to waste a perfectly good bottle of bourbon?
Damon, surprisingly, had returned and Stefan was the first person he saw. Stefan couldn't believe it. He thought it was just a drunken hallucination. In this show, love comes and goes over and over, but the bond between the Salvatore brothers remains unbreakable.
come back.
After reuniting with his brother, Damon couldn't wait to see Elena. But Stefan told him that Elena had asked Alaric to erase her memories of loving him. Damon, confident as ever, believed that as soon as Elena saw him, all her memories would come flooding back. True love conquers all. Meanwhile, Alaric broke the news of Damon's return to Elena. However, Elena's only impression of Damon now was that he was evil and cruel. She felt happy with her current life and didn't want her old memories back. Alaric, although disappointed, respected Elena's choice. To avoid Damon, Elena decided to take an extra shift at the hospital. Alaric asked her to investigate why Joe couldn't be compelled, but before Elena could leave her dorm, Damon showed up. After hearing Damon's voice, Elena, who wanted to open the door, immediately withdrew her hand. Damon pleaded with Elena, asking her to give him one more chance. Elena was torn. She was about to start a new relationship, and now Damon was back.
Just open the door, Elena. And everything can go back to the way it was.
She pulled her hand away again. Damon's patience was wearing thin, but he struggled to keep his cool. Just then, the door opened. Damon gently pushed it open, but Elena had escaped out the window, leaving Damon looking utterly defeated. Elena fled to the hospital and started investigating why Joe couldn't be compelled. She secretly drank Joe's drink, discovering there was no vervain in it. Next, Elena turned her attention to Joe's bracelet, but Joe surprised her by directly calling out Elena's vampire identity, leaving Elena uneasy.
If any more blood bags go missing, I know who to come to.
Meanwhile, Damon confronted Alaric, making sarcastic jabs at him. Alaric felt frustrated as well, but he refused Damon's request to forcibly restore Elena's memories, stating that it could only happen if Elena asked for it herself. Damon was genuinely angry, even taking the fine bottle of wine that was meant for Alaric. Elena grew more curious about how Joe resisted compulsion without vervain. It turned out Joe was a witch. They promised to keep each other's secrets. Meanwhile, after killing Ivy, Tripp gave Enzo a final ultimatum. He had until sundown to reveal his fellow vampires, which left Matt feeling anxious. Matt informed his friends that Enzo had been captured by Tripp. Stefan finally admitted that he had handed Enzo over to Tripp, though he hadn't anticipated it would drag everyone else down with him. The group split up, with Caroline and Stefan going to rescue Enzo, while Matt infiltrated Tripp's office to gather information. Stefan showed no remorse for his actions and blamed Enzo, saying that it was Enzo who turned Ivy into a vampire, and then betrayed her to save his own skin. Caroline saw right through Stefan's motives. He was only saving Enzo because Damon was back. They followed Matt's lead to a hidden holding cell, only to find that Enzo had already been moved. Meanwhile, Matt found Ivy's phone, which revealed that she had contacted Caroline before her death. Caroline's identity was now exposed. The depressed Damon went to Elena's dormitory and discovered that Elena hadn't even kept a single picture of him. Damon had a brainstorm and decided to draw a picture of himself in the picture frame. Jeremy rushed in, demanding that Damon tell him Bonnie's whereabouts. Damon couldn't bear to tell Jeremy that Bonnie had sacrificed herself to bring him back, so he lied, saying Bonnie wasn't in the prison world. She had found peace. After Jeremy left, Damon received a call from Elena. Elena decided she couldn't keep running away, so they agreed to meet at the dorm to talk. Damon, overjoyed, nervously tidied up the room like an excited child. When he heard the door open, he could barely contain his happiness, but to his surprise, it wasn't Elena. It was Tripp. Damon caught the tranquilizer dart, ready to take out the old hunter, but Tripp had brought backup. Once again, Damon and Enzo were about to find themselves in the same boat.